everyone. Thank you for joining this session this afternoon. This is our update webinar on our community-based debt advice commissioning. It's nice to recognise some familiar faces, but by way of introduction, I'm Samantha Leach. I'm the Debt Advice Development Lead here at MAPS. I am covering this session today for my colleague Erica, but this really is an update session for those of you that have either attended or have been at some of our round one regional events that have been taking place. So today's session it is going to be a short focus run through of what's likely to change based on some of the feedback that you provided so far, and obviously a chance to add any further clarifications or comments as you reflect on the information that has been provided. James, if you're just okay to go to the next slide, please. Yeah. So obviously what we're going to do in this essay, I'm going to at some point hand to James and he's going to talk you through some of the changes, but what we are going to do is outline the changes that we're likely going to make to the grant competition process, and this is arising from the engagement that we've had today. We're going to obviously leave space for your feedback and any clarifying questions, but it is important to note that the changes we're sharing, these are not yet formalised internally and may still change, and obviously they don't cover everything. There has been more feedback that we've received, and we have just before this had a webinar that was primarily for those organisations that will fall into our round two, but also there were some organisations that joined who may be in round one. So understandably that session only ended about 10-15 minutes ago, so we haven't had yet a chance to collate that feedback, but again that will factor in into the final decisions that we make. So you can add any comments or questions in the chat. There is such a small group, so again we've obviously made that decision that your cameras and mics are enabled. So when I hand over to James, if at any point with what we're going through you want to come off camera, ask a question, please do so. We don't envisage that from our side of our update this taking much more than 5, possibly 10 minutes. I think we have allocated half an hour for this session, if not slightly longer. So please, if you do have questions and want to ask anything, we've certainly got the time and space to do that. So what we're going to cover, we are going to cover process, timelines and eligibility, what might have changed and why. Again, where we've made some changes from what we've heard in respect of the stage 1 and then the stage 2 questions, and then the stage 2 assessment areas. So following all the feedback that we received so far. At the end then I will give a reminder about a upcoming webinar. So we're looking at some work around how we can support you with bid writing, and I'll share some more information with you on that at the end. I think I have covered everything, and with that being said, I will now hand over to James.
Thanks, Anne. Afternoon, everybody. Yeah, so we're going to start with giving some updates, starting with the process, timelines and eligibility. Not a great deal to update here, but for completeness, I'll go through it anyway. The process, this slide will look familiar to you. I think at some of the events we talked through this potential change anyway, because it came out at one of the earlier events. Essentially, the only change we're going to make to this as things stand is in terms of when we provide and how we provide feedback after we've done the initial review of your detailed draft stage 2 application. So our intention is to provide all that feedback verbally during the dialogue meeting. That dialogue meeting is not a formal part of the process, it's not scored, it's an opportunity for us to give you feedback on the strengths of your initial bid, areas for development, and then to have a two-way discussion and a chance for you to give clarification as well. Therefore, the output would be a complete meeting note of everything else discussed, which will include the feedback, and therefore that output will then for you a full audit trail of what we talked about to deal with as you see fit, hopefully to take some of that advice and thought on board in developing your final application. So there's no great change there, but it's about how and when we'll be providing that feedback. In terms of the timeline itself, we set out this timeline for round 1. We're not intending to make any changes here at all. So what you see here is how we hope it's going to run. The one area where it's slightly out of our control, so there may be a spanner in the works, we hope not, but we're not anticipating sign-off from government, that's DWP and Treasury, until early April. Now, we heard earlier this week that they're probably a couple of weeks behind where they'd like to be in their decision-making processes, but we still fully anticipate a positive decision from them in April. And if that's the case, we'll continue as planned to open the process from the 11th of May. If there's delays, we'll obviously communicate that in due course, and it effectively will mean all those hours will have to shift to the right. But as things stand, touch wood, everything's progressing, and we should be able to go ahead as planned from the 11th of May. In terms of the date slide that we shared previously, only really some minor tweak here. It was pointed out quite rightly that when we said the competition documents would be shared on the CBDA webpage on the 6th of April, the 6th of April is in fact Easter Monday, so it won't be the 6th of April. It'll be that week, ideally the 7th of April. So just a really minor change there. But all other dates remain as were, assuming we do get the sign off when we need it. And in terms of eligibility, we had a lot of discussion at the groups around Cyber Essentials Plus, the thresholds. I think there's general support, at least understanding for the direction of travel in those areas. And we haven't yet picked up on any major tweaks we need to make to the eligibility criteria. That said, we're still working through the notes we made at those sessions, and we had that webinar earlier that Sam mentioned. So there may be small changes, but nothing significant. And on those two areas where we discussed with you, where we're yet to finalise our position around cyber insurance, personnel security requirements, we're not yet ready to give you an update on that either. We need to see what came out of the webinar earlier. We've had some really interesting discussions at the in-person events. Some of you have emailed us separately about it afterwards with some additional information. So we're still collating what that all means. At some point soon, we'll be making some decisions about what we do with these two areas. And as soon as we do, we'll communicate that to you. So that's eligibility. In terms of the stage 1 and stage 2 questions, again, you recognise this slide. This is what we presented to you on the day. And where we've received feedback from you at more than one event, we've captured some areas where we're more than likely to make some changes. So those areas with the green dotted line, they're changes we are absolutely going to make. It's not been signed off technically, but I'm sure it will be. So the green ones, in terms of the two questions we're initially going to assess against, they were questions 1 and 3. We initially proposed we'd do that on a pass-fail basis, but then feedback we heard at multiple events is actually there's more support for a scoring ladder here to help differentiate between bids. And we think on reflection, that's wholly sensible. It helps us as well. So that scoring ladder we're going to impose for questions 1 and 3. And I'll show you on the next slide what that scoring ladder looks like again. The point around question 3 about the word count came through really strongly. 500 words is not enough words for you to outline your suitability around those prompts we've given you, especially as it's a scored question. So we're going to increase the word count for that probably up to 1,500, which means the entirety of the word count for stage 1 will be 5,000. The area with an amber border, we're not yet landed on a decision here. So you may recall that we talked about initially that in terms of assessing your local knowledge and understanding, we weren't going to assess that because we feel as a national organisation, we're not as well informed enough to do that fairly and consistently. And we heard from people in the rooms as we've gone around the events that people kind of get that and understood it. But we've also heard the counter argument to that, that some people in some events we went to feel that this is such an important part of the bid that we should be assessing it. So two polarised views there. We've got to reflect on what we've heard. We've got to reflect what comes back from that webinar. And at some point soon, we'll make a decision as to whether we are going to formally assess that or keep it as per plan A, which was to get that information for information only. So again, watch this space. We'll confirm what we intend to do with that as soon as those decisions have been made. And in terms of the stage, also that's the scoring ladder that we're always intending to use that for stage 2. It's a scoring ladder we've used on previous schemes and it does work well, but that's a scoring ladder we'll now use for at least questions 1 and 3 on stage 1 as well. It's just there for information if it's helpful to you. And then for stage 2, again, this is what we presented and a quick summary of what we've heard. So the areas in green is where we're more than likely to make the changes. So in the far right-hand column, there's 4 questions that we said we'd look at a pass-fail basis. Quite rightly, we heard from you that actually you need to know more. What constitutes a pass? What constitutes a fail? and we are absolutely intending to provide that information to you in due course. We've not done it yet, but we will do that, so you get absolutely more further clarity in due course about what would constitute a pass or a fail. And then for questions 1, 2 and 6, we've heard enough now, I think, that we need to make adjustments to them. So I'll quickly talk you through each of those potential changes. The first one was around the service design and delivery question. It's the highest weighted question. It's the highest word count. But the feedback I think we heard consistently is we're trying to do too much in this question. There's 8 prompts there. It's quite daunting to actually work your way through that. So we're going to have a rethink. We're going to try and rationalise those 8 prompts into potentially 4 or 5 prompts to make it easier for you to focus on what's really important that we want to hear from you on. So we haven't done that yet. We will work to rationalise that. So the next time you see this question and the prompts, hopefully it'll feel less daunting to you. So that's some changes we're going to be making. On question 2, if you recall, there was a question with a 3,000 word limit. And we've also said we'd have a template for sub-grantee key information. Now, the challenge we heard at a few of the events were particularly for those bids coming forward where there's numerous partners, 10, 15, 20 partners. That's really difficult for you to tell us about their responsibilities, their expertise, why they've been chosen in just 3,000 words. So our approach for this question is going to be, we're going to expand the sub-grantee key information spreadsheet, which we'll share with you in the coming weeks, just for information really, but it will include background information to each of your partners. It will include a section on their eligibility to be part of this project, but then we're going to expand that to give you space on that same spreadsheet to tell us about their responsibilities, their expertise, and why they've been selected, which frees up a lot of the word count for the question, which means we can reframe that. So we've got some tinkering to do with this. As I say, the template we'll share with you soon for comment. And again, next time you see this question, it'll be slightly reframed differently, and we'll test that with you in due course. And then the final change, and I think we made this clear at the events, that question 6 is the one we're struggling with. You know, it's around outcomes, impact, quality and customer experience. Really important. It's going to be a scored question where we're struggling with, again, we've probably got too much in there, too much to cover. So again, we're doing some internal work to help rationalise and provide better clarity as to what we need for this question. I mentioned at the events that we did a webinar on this subject before Christmas. From that webinar came a survey for you to give us more feedback on KPIs and such. That survey link we're going to reissue. It's closed at the moment. We're going to reopen it because we really want to get more intelligence from you to help us shape this question to make it work for all parties. So this is a work in progress for us. And essentially, that's as things stand, the changes we're going to make. There's lots more we need to digest from what we heard at the events, lots more for the webinar earlier, but they're the initial changes that we're more likely to be making. Happy to take any questions on any of that right now. Any immediate thoughts or clarifications? Any surprises? Any omissions? Nope. Nope. Yeah, that's fine. Absolutely no problem at all. Couple more things to flag then. Erica trailed this at the events, but just to reiterate that we're doing some bid writing webinars in late March. So that's being worked up at the moment. So the invites for those, or the opportunity to be part of that, will go out via the social media channels and via the contacts list as soon as available. We do expect it to be oversubscribed. So if there's something you think you'd benefit from, or someone in your organisation benefit from, sign up to that as soon as you can. So watch this space for that one. And then final slide, just a reminder that any queries, clarifications, concerns, questions, use that inbox to let us know what your challenges are, whatever it is you want to know, and we'll get back to you via that as soon as we can.